your therapist won't take your calls anymore, there's always The Last Show with David Cooper.
It's broadcasting's only mental health specific content that intends to air on a Thursday but airs on a Wednesday. It's Therapy Thursdays. On a Wednesday, we are joined by social worker and therapist Gary Dierenfeld, who has a cold. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thanks. My voice, I'm lucky I have a voice. I woke up this morning and said, where the heck was it? You know, I'm speaking like a frog here. But let's do this.
Let's jump in. Yeah, well, you have a cold. I know you're retired from taking patients. I know you meet with at least one mental patient a week. That's me. But in the future, when you show up sick as a therapist, you could have your AI chatbot replace you. Are you worried about AI therapy?
Yeah, I am worried about it. There's more than just sitting back and saying, how does that make you feel? Yeah, I feel like Fraser Crane when I
I'm listening.
Excuse me, when I do that. There is so much more to know, so much more to do. I do worry where the AI bot could go with therapy. What do you do with a suicidal person? What do you do with the person where the issue, and this is what a lot of my work was, separated couples, where I'm coaching one of the couples how to deal with a narcissistic ex.
High stakes. If you give wrong advice, it could blow up.
It's always high stakes in counseling, but yeah. And there's more to counseling, like I said, than just exploring a person's feelings. Sometimes we have to teach skills. And will the AI instrument know when to switch from active listening to facilitating skill development?
I know the answer to that question. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
On the one hand, therapy can be expensive, hard to access. If you need to ask a quick question and it's not a high-stakes answer, I think it's kind of cool that people can get mental health advice from these large language models. But that's like this 5% maybe somewhat useful. The 95 is, I'm on board with you.
Yes.
Extremely worrisome.
Having spoken about this on my Facebook page some time ago, I do know that many people are already accessing AI for counseling, and that many have found it really, really helpful. So I'm not one to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I just want to make sure that it's sophisticated enough to discern who needs what kind of therapy as well.
Okay. Well, that's just our side, because I was thinking about AI and you being sick. Let's get into our main topic, and it's bullying. Now, being bullied isn't just a playground thing for kids. It can be in the workplace. It can be in families. Man, it even happens in group chats on your phone.
And
what does it look like for adults mostly? Why it can mess with our head? How you deal with that without losing your mind? Like, these are the things I want to talk about. I think it can be embarrassing when we're bullied as adults. We feel like we're supposed to be beyond that. That's supposed to be a thing for young kids. But there it is in the workplace. You know, your peer is treating you like garbage.
It is ubiquitous, meaning bullying is everywhere. It crosses faith, ethnicity, gender identity, preference. It crosses age. You know, we have 5-year-olds being bullied, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. We have 10 to 13-year-olds who have, and older, who have taken their lives the result of online bullying. Like you said, we certainly do have it in the workplace as well. And come on, look at politics. Yeah. It's ubiquitous in politics as well. So how do we handle it?
Even before that's the topic, but how do we recognize it? What actually counts as bullying as an adult?
Yeah, when you are demeaned, when you're put down, when you are caused to feel fearful about yourself in any way or manner, when you're trying to express yourself, have a discussion, have an opinion, it's the use of that force, that use of control, one over another, that defines bullying.
Is there a component of regularity to it? Like if it's a one-off comment, sure, it's one thing, but what if it's like every day, undermined at every moment, at every meeting, when you're sitting at your desk, little comments, things like that?
Right. So then we can talk about the severity, intensity, and like you were saying, the regularity of it. There are some folks whose personality disposition leans towards bullying. I am better to the degree to which I make you look worse. That's a personality disposition. That is a whole other level of bullying that will require many different kinds of interventions, up to and including you may have to leave. Because some people will not take accountability, will not be held accountable. We don't win, David, every situation. You know, we have to sometimes sit back and assess, how do we handle this? I'll speak to a couple of situations. A 10 or 11-year-old girl who was sent to me for bullying, she was overweight, and that made her a target.
Sure.
That's all it was. And I just gave her technically we would call it a cognitive strategy. I said, pretend you have a sheet of glass in front of you. And as the insult hits the glass, it literally just slides down. It doesn't actually touch you. And she thought about that for a minute. And she thought she could use that.
Yeah. And
here's the power with that message, with that strategy. Bullies bully in part because they can, and the other part is because of the reaction.
Sure.
So if we limit the opportunity, it can stop. If we limit the reaction, that can also lead to it stopping.
There's also a thread of this where bullies bully, and it says more about them than it does about you.
Well, yeah, but try telling that to the 10-year-old. It's not about you, it's about them, right? You know, it doesn't make me live with it any better. So providing this kid this strategy, honestly, was all it took for her to sidestep it, move on. And look, it doesn't stop the bully from being a bully. They look for their next person of vulnerability.
That's how I handled it with my brother. You just can't show that it was bothering you. The more it showed to my older brother that it was bothering me, the more he'd be like, "Oh, there's, whatever was going on with him." I mean, my eldest brother bullied my older brother, my middle brother, and so he had stuff going on. He didn't feel great about himself. He's my best friend now, but I just I learned that from my brother, and then it served me well in school. If anyone ever picked on me, don't show that they're bothering you. I grew up with an all-star pro bully, my brother. I was able to handle anyone at school. That was Bush League. But they are looking for a reaction generally.
Totally. I want to tell the story of myself being bullied as an adult. I'm almost 70, so this goes back about 15 years. It was on the street where our cottage is. This kid zipping up and down on his four-wheeler, 8 o'clock at night. He's been going at it all day. I go out to the street, find his dad. He's out there drinking with a few of the other people on the street. No issue with that. But I say to him, your son's been going at it all day. We can't sit out on our porch and enjoy it for the noise that this kid is creating. Would you mind asking him to stop for the night? This guy looks at me and says, do you want to fight about it? Yeah, literally.
Oh, boy.
I point to my not so gorgeous, slightly overweight body and say, does this look like the body of a fighter? I'm asking you nicely. Yeah. He tells me where to put my anatomy. And I say, no problem. So, David, I went back home, told my parents what had transpired, and I just phoned the police.
Oh, boy.
And my parents were worried.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Bullying. What does it look like when you're an adult? Why does it mess with you so much? How do you deal with that without losing yourself? That is what we're talking. We're talking bullying in the workplace, amongst families, as adults at cottages somehow.
Yeah.
We're here with Gary Dierenfeld again. And Gary, catch us up. Okay, so you're at your cottage. There's a kid on his bike keeping you up, making it so you can't enjoy
a
your
motorized, those four-wheelers. Okay.
And then you go to the kid's
Right.
dad being like, look, it's late. We want to hang out on our patio without having a kid tear up around.
And he tells me what I can do with my anatomy and invites me to a fight.
Yeah.
I go back. I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, for crying out loud. I go back to the cottage. I explain to my parents what's transpired, and I phone the police. My parents are freaking out. What if he does this? What if he does that? Said, Mom, that's why we're insured. That's why we have services. Called the police. And I said, look, I'm not looking to get this guy arrested for assault, because as soon as you threaten, that's already an assault.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want the kid to stop. Police show up. It's a small public road. The kid's not allowed to do that. The kid is 8 years old. Kid's not wearing a helmet.
Gary, you're a narc. I like it.
I absolutely listen. Bullies bully because they can, and they have
Yeah.
to learn that they can't.
No, he threatened you. I
It
get it.
stopped
I mean,
that
it
night.
just-
Next morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, the kid's going up and down again. I called the police. Within a half hour, it stopped. 2 o'clock, same day, afternoon, kids going up and down the street again. I called the police for the third time, David.
Oh, boy.
Police show up, and all I can tell you is that kid never rode that 4x4 again. My view was, I gave you the opportunity to negotiate with me last night. You invited me to a street fight. Buddy, I don't negotiate with terrorists.
I don't know what the lesson is here. Maybe it's just that.
If you're going to be bullied,
Yeah.
you have to find a way to stand your ground. And you don't need to stand your ground personally. You can use the services available to you.
Yeah, if you're a kid, it's your teacher. If you're at work, it's maybe your boss. I don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. Will this work for everyone? Of course not. But the moral of the story is bullies bully because they can. And when they can't, when they're finally held accountable, when there's a boundary in place, it makes it a lot more difficult.
Not everybody's the same as you. Some people get like the
Correct.
freeze response.
Absolutely.
Like there's trouble. Maybe it's not a violent threat, but it's a threat nonetheless, or it's mean behavior, or it's psychologically tough behavior, and they just lock up like a deer in the headlights. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you.
Yep.
What do you do in that moment?
That's where you need to take control of yourself. You need to find your calm. And that may mean exiting the situation and then composing yourself and figuring out, what is my strategy? Do know that appeasement typically isn't a strategy. Giving in, buying peace typically emboldens the bully. So we want to find a way, wherever possible, to have them held accountable. And if you can't do that, then indeed, if you want to survive the situation, you may actually have to leave it. We worry, so many children at school, they do not feel empowered. The administration isn't always good at listening to this. And they're afraid to disclose because there's another threat that if you tell, I'm going to kill you or I'm going to hurt you. And so parents sometimes have to play detective with a child who is refusing to go to school. What's going on? Versus just yanking them by the ear and sending them. What's going on? Is there someone there making your life difficult? And then almost every kid has told their parent, no, don't tell the principal.
Yeah, they don't want to get embarrassed. They think it might escalate.
Exactly. But parents, you can't be held hostage by that. You do have to address that. Otherwise, your kid will forever be living in fear and they won't be learning. You have to address it. And look, it doesn't guarantee a good outcome. But there's a role modeling that goes on for your child when you support your child against the bully and sometimes against the administration. They say, we're not going to take this anymore. We're going to address it. We're going to stand our ground.
Is there a toll of chronic bullying? I'm not just talking about kids. Like, I feel like it's a toll that's very similar to having chronic anxiety or depression or stress. It can really affect you over a long term.
As you've just said, we've seen many people in our social work and counseling practices who are affected long term by bullying with depression, with anxiety, with low self-esteem. They have been suppressed, oppressed in their lives, and they need a way to find their voice and to self-advocate. Those are skills. They don't necessarily come easily when you're working from a place of fear, but the degree to which you can adopt some of those skills, that is how you come out of that funk or out of those mental health issues. You don't come out of it simply by saying, this is how I feel. You have to develop skills.
What about social bullies, like a friend in the friend group who excludes you and who's subtly mean to you and tries to undermine you, and when you're not around, they say mean things about you? Asking for a friend there. I don't have any, but if I did have a friend, I'd be asking for a friend.
There's a concept, like sometimes these people like to go under the radar, even though we know what's happening. There's a concept of making what is covert, what is hidden, open, overt. So sometimes addressing, other people call it the elephant in the room, addressing the elephant in the room. So-and-so, you've been saying these things about me. It's come back to me through the grapevine. I'm just wondering if there's something you need to address with me. Mm-hmm. I'm not attacking. I'm opening up. But now in the clear light of day, this person is going to have to address their own behavior.
Nobody, or at least very few people, think they're the bully. There's got to be cases where you are.
Well,
and
absolutely.
you maybe don't realize it, or you're unwilling to admit it to yourself. How can we be better?
So first of all, calling a bully doesn't change behavior. Let's be clear about that. And in fact, it can create more defiance and more digging in. I'm not a bully, but rather address the behavior, not the label. If you wonder if you were a bully, first of all, I would applaud you, because few people would have that kind of insight who engage in this behavior. They see themselves as fine, and they relish their own behavior.
Most people think they're the hero of their own story, or they're the victim in their own story.
Yeah. But for that rare occasion, if you're wondering if your behavior is offensive to others, ask others. Does my behavior offend you?
Am I a bully? Oh, no. I'm going to ask my girlfriend when I get home, am I a bully? If she says yes, I'll lose my mind. Gary, am I a bully?
Look, a question that I will ask my wife.
You're supposed to say no.
No, you're not a bully.
All right,
sometimes my wife will get annoyed with me. We're normal. We're human. And rather than denying, I'll say, what would you like me to have done differently? And, she's a reasonable woman. And I will follow through typically with what she'd like me to do differently. So we always have to learn about ourselves, and hopefully the reasonable person is open to that.
Gary Dierenfeld, a social worker, a therapist, though a retired one, so don't look him up to try to use him as a, be his patient or whatever, or client. Gary, it was a joy having you. Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. I look forward to speaking to you next Wednesday for our Thursday session. Gary, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Welcome to Survivor 50.
February 25th on Global.
We chose you to represent 25 years of the greatest adventure on television.
It's the biggest season ever.
The twist is going to open up Pandora's box. Now I see Zach Brown on Survivor.
Welcome to Survivor, Mr. Beast.
Feels a little like a high school reunion meets a massacre.
Survivor 50th season, Wednesday, February 25th on Global. Stream on Stack TV.